Welcome to the panel. We're going to be discussing, I think I'll redact it down, discussing some of the issues involving how you connect users with video content, both on television, broadband, and other platforms, and how you connect them with the content, and also how you connect them with the advertising. Talking about both technology and business issues there. What we're going to do first is have the panel members introduce themselves, tell you a bit about their companies and what they do, and then we'll go right into the panel discussion. So if we can, I guess, go down the line, we'll start with Andy Addis.
Okay, thanks, Bill. My name is Andy Addis. We're with a technology startup called Hillcrest Labs, and basically we create software that we sell to the consumer electronics industry, network service operators, and internet content companies to create highly differentiated products and services by effectively bringing a new navigation paradigm to the television and to other consumer electronic devices. So in a world of exploding content, starting with VOD, but then really taking it to entirely new levels with broadband video, et cetera. Our belief is that the current up, down, left, right paradigm is broken, the grid is gridlocked, and a new paradigm is required that can unleash the value associated with all of that content. So that's what we're setting out to do.
Okay, my name is Jack Gage. I'm President and CEO of Magnum Semiconductor. Magnum is a pre-IPO company involved in providing semiconductor software and system reference designs for recording, viewing, and managing audio-video content. So we're involved in the digital revolution, which, as you know, started with the screen becoming digital, and now the transmission becoming digital over the air. And with this, the capability to store content, whether it's data, audio, and video, and enabling the management of that content and the exchange over multiple systems. So things like capability to record your content now, either directly on a disk or on a hard disk, your personal content, exchange that with your friend and family. There are tons of systems now coming up, such as this one also, which looks like a giant iPod. I don't know if you've seen that one from Sony, which basically has clearly a big red button which does all the recording capabilities and automatically for the users. So the changes that we're seeing with this is the fact that now the user has the ability to record what they want. And so they can be selective and they can view that content, the content they like multiple times, but they can also choose to skip it. So I'm sure that'll be one of the topic of discussion is as you want to leverage financial models for the content as well as the advertising, you now have both the opportunity to get multiple hits with just one ad and over your targeted selected audience, or you may skip if you haven't done your homework. So I think the way that content now can be just stored and managed and exchanged is going to create a tremendous challenge in the next few years, and we're all wrestling with what to do with DRM and how to make sure we're controlling that content so that it can be properly compensated. But on the other hand, it's going to bring a tremendous amount of opportunities for the companies that are able to capitalize on that, multiple repeat viewing capability. Okay.
So my name is Martijn Lopez Cardozo. I'm with Tandberg Television, and we're market leaders in compression, video on demand, infrastructure for acquisition of N2 Broadband Interactive, for the acquisition of Gold Pocket Interactive, and more recently we acquired Z Tools out of Los Angeles as well. And just wanted to sort of say, I think it's a somewhat confusing but definitely very exciting time to be in the industry. We have multiple platforms, multiple ways of interacting, and a lot of people trying to solve problems different ways that I think, if we can rally around it with all the relevant partners in the ecosystem, we can actually deliver a tremendous end user experience.
Thanks, Martin. Colin Dixon. I am practice manager for IP media at the Diffusion Group. Actually, I think I'm going to be changing my title since my son pointed out the humor in IP media. The Diffusion Group is an analyst group and consulting group. We focus on primary research in the consumer electronics space and in digital media. What we really specialize in is the application of that knowledge rather than just putting the numbers and putting out reports on numbers. So we like the catchphrase, we create intelligence in action. I'm the author of a couple of reports. I did a recent report on the personal entertainment guide, the evolution of the TV guide, and I just completed another report on IPTV.
My name is Ralph Hartley. I'm the Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Professional Products Group for Sonic Solutions. Sonic is also known as Roxio, also known as Interactual. We've been servicing the Hollywood community for their Hollywood to Home, for our Hollywood to Home strategy for since about 1985 or so. We have in the Professional Products Group a series of applications that have authored about 90% of the published DVDs in the marketplace, and we're turning our attention to Blu-ray disc and HD DVD, and as well the interactive capabilities that come along with that, inclusive of the communication possibilities via contextual messaging with those platforms.
Good morning, my name is Trevor Cornwell. I'm the CEO of Broadband Television Network. We launched a global media service in April of this past year. And what we've done is created proprietary software, and we're focused on building geographic specific networks over the internet. So we have a suite of video channels, for instance, in the Middle East, which includes a partnership that we've developed with the Middle East Broadcasting Company and a number of other top-tier providers there. We have a suite of video channels that we provide in Europe, including Euronews, Agence France Presse, some top sitcoms. What we're focused really on doing is getting highly rated, enriching entertainment and news programming and providing it on a global basis, and then customizing that experience on both a geographic and user-specific area. Our software has sophisticated algorithms which allow us to be able to push programming based on user behavior and preferences.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go right into the discussion, but I wanted to first share some numbers that we've developed, taking a look at the landscape for video, and just to try and put in context some of the things we're going to be talking about. First of all, how many U.S. households are getting digital television right now? It's about slightly over 50%. And so, I don't mean HD, I mean digital. So if you look at the number of households that have digital cable, or the number of households that have satellite, which is digital, slightly over 50%, split about evenly between cable and satellite. Right now in the US for VOD, that's cable delivered VOD, about 25% of US households have that right now. DVRs, our work indicates that it's 16% of US households. Broadband is in 44% of US households. And we've also run some numbers on hours of usage of various kinds of video. It's a way of putting in context all of the different numbers that you hear for television and broadband, trying to redact them down to a single metric, which is number of annual person hours of viewing in the United States. So to start with, let's take a look at broadband. We've heard a lot today and at the conference about broadband and YouTube. YouTube citing its 100 million videos a day. If you make an estimate that the average length of an online video right now is about 2 minutes, and work through the numbers, YouTube says that they're 60% of online videos, and it's probably about correct. Total US viewing of broadband video right now is around 2 billion hours a year. Well, 2 billion hours is a large number, but if you compare it to television, using the Nielsen numbers, you get that the total number of person hours of television viewing in the United States is 460 billion hours a year. So broadband video, I mean, I use it. I think it's a very fast-growing platform. It offers, in fact, some advantages over television, but right now it's still a small market relative to total U.S. television viewing. VOD. VOD, again, we've heard some numbers coming from some operators, but if you work through the numbers, you get that VOD viewing in the United States is about 3.5 billion hours a year. And one subject we're going to address is it seems like it should be higher, so why isn't it? For internet use, home internet use, total home internet use, if you look at Nielsen Net Ratings numbers, you get that total home internet use is 56 billion hours a year. And for DVRs, our estimates are, and this is based on some time-shifting estimates we've seen from Cox and NBC, that total home DVR use is 28 billion hours a year of time-shifted viewing. Now, one question might be, why is that so much larger than broadband and VOD, particularly VOD? I think the reason is that VOD is an environment that is constrained somewhat by content right now. DVR has the unfair advantage of being connected to the 200 channels or so of ad-supported television that come into digital cable and satellite households. So it does not have a content availability problem. It can use whatever content comes into the house for television. Let's get into the discussion. First question that I'm going to pose is, if you look at broadband delivered video, in fact, the internet in general, you see a fairly robust set of tools to develop user interfaces. You can provide users with search, with tagging, with community recommendations, a variety of ways of accessing content. If you go look at digital television, let's just say it's a somewhat less robust set of tools available through the program guide, which is how people that have digital television access their content. The first question I've got, and I'm going to throw this at Andy Addis, because he, in addition to being a guide vendor now, has worked previously for a large cable operator. Why is that? What are sort of the business and the technical side reasons why we just don't see as robust a guide and a user experience in cable and satellite versus the internet?
Okay, so I think for starters, and I worked at Comcast for 8 years before I joined Hillcrest about a year and a half ago, and launched video on demand. I actually launched digital cable, video on demand, and a bunch of other products. And I think the fundamental issue is that the large cable companies are bent on controlling the user interface, and I think they felt that they were vulnerable, 6-8 years ago, when TV Guide was waving all of the IP in front of them, saying, you will pay us a lot of money, and we will control the user interface, or you can control it, but guess what? We're not going to change it very quickly. And so, as a result, even a few years ago, Comcast bought 51% of TV Guide Interactive, so they could control that IP and control their destiny. Time Warner's doing the same thing with their Digital Navigator product, but the problem is that in seeking control, they bought a technology that's 12 to 15 years old. It's a grid-based up, down, left, right paradigm, and they're very vested in it. They spent a lot of money to buy the IP and control that environment, and they've spent a lot of money since then trying to incrementally improve that. So my belief that I'm fairly passionate about is that paradigm is broken, and that up, down, left, right navigation environment just does not scale to the amount of content that's available even today on video on demand. Comcast offers 6,000 or so different choices, and the reality is, with the deep menu structure that's up, down, left, right, consumers, they really don't even know what they have. And the biggest constraining factor with VOD, well, there are two. One is that never was there a real business model put underneath it that would incentivize the content providers to provide the right stuff, their best stuff. And advertising should be that business model. But the other key constraining factor is the guide. And the internet presents a daunting threat. But the reality is the numbers are small, so that it's not going to put any cable company out of business anytime soon. But to the extent that they sort of react and respond and improve their navigation tools on the internet side, and I think the belief or the hope is ultimately they would then push that to the television, into the set-top box arena. But the fact of the matter is it's going to take a while. It's going to take 2 to 3 years before that happens, if it happens. And my belief is that if they don't make that transition, if they don't change the fundamental up, down, left, right paradigm, they will be in big trouble, because there will be a tsunami of digital content available over the next 5 to 10 years, and they will simply not be able to keep up. And there will be companies that emerge, that leverage the new technology, that leverage the web, that leverage new navigation paradigms, that will extract and create a lot of value for consumers based on this torrent of content, and the cable companies will become vulnerable to that. So let me stop there. I don't want to go on for too long, but that's, I think, the fundamental issue.
And maybe to add to that, I think the challenge is becoming larger, because I think the traditional suppliers of video have somewhat of a unique opportunity, because they still, some more or less control the TV set, which is the largest, most, best quality. Customers invest, often hundreds or thousands of dollars in new plasma and LCDs, and ultimately I think a lot of the internet, wireless, and other type of content will end up on that set in some shape or form. So by making the system and doing some of the things that Andy described, and incorporating and embracing this new wave of content, they actually can be in a very good position. And I think the person who controls the navigational experience, as we have seen with carriers and wireless carriers and other places, if you control the end user experience, you can, once you start doing subscriptions, you can really become more of a retailer with shelf space. So, my sense would be I think as opposed to, dragging their feet, if I would be a cable operator, I would embrace that space and really be aggressive about it, and, incorporate everything that's going on in the wireless and broadband space, and make it part of the core offering, and as a result, be in a very good, gatekeeper position.
So the venerable grid guide, as Andy said, was invented in 1993, 94, and launched by Starsight. And it did a pretty good job of handling 20 channels. So if you fast forward to today, if you're on the average cable or satellite system, you have 250 channels. You probably have 200 movies broadcast on that system a week. You will have something like 40 or 50,000 hours a year of sports. If you're on Comcast, you have 5,000 hours of VOD content. And yet, I still have the same tool, essentially, that was built for 200 channels. So, fundamentally, this doesn't work. And if you look at the architecture, the code has grown to sort of try and encompass all of this new stuff in a very restricted environment. The simple reason that that the cable companies and the pay TV operators can't innovate in that product is because the code's a mess and it's in a restricted space. So the great hope is, of course, with broadband, that all that is going to change, and most of the cable operators are now starting to deploy broadband-enabled boxes. However, when we actually see guides that take advantage of that, I don't know. However, I wanted to give you a quick example of how it should be. I had a hankering yesterday for some punk rock. So I jumped up on YouTube and I typed punk rock. And instantly I got back the Dead Milkmen playing Punk Rock Girl. Don't know if that's a good song, didn't know that song. But I checked, it said 4 out of 5 stars. I read that Clash Chariot 77 said he loved that beeping song. I put it on, it was great. That's the way you should find content, not grid guides.
Yeah, for Hollywood, the home video departments are very interested in connecting disc-based media with internet usage for all kinds of messaging that will be contextual to their content. And it's important to point out specifically we think of menuing or as guides. Hollywood thinks of connecting through menuing that is seamless to the internet, specifically for disc-based media, but they are very proprietary about the content that's on the disc. They think of the user that is accessing anything that's disc-based media, such as a movie for a specific genre or rating or other kinds of thing, as their customer, their territory. So they're very anxious about the way that people may be able to navigate away or be pushed or shown other messaging that may not be appropriate for the kind of content or the kind of user that they have at that particular moment.
I think that what Colin was talking about in terms of the perfect experience of search is really what's driven so much of the way that the market has reacted. And I think one of the things that we've failed to really understand, and I think it's what's going to end up causing a real big traffic accident in a year or 2 years with a lot of companies going out of business, is that we're focused on the idea that because we can give everybody everything, that's what people want. And I think it's a fundamental failure of understanding the psychology of television. The next generation media networks have to do more than just provide anything and make it available on search. And I think it really comes down to going beyond the program guide and really focusing on programming. If you think about the way that we watch television, we have 2 basic things that we do. We either have an appointment with a particular television program, and whether we time shift that appointment through a DVR, we still have something that we're looking for in particular. The other way of watching television is that we sit back and we watch probably one of 12 channels that we have amongst a suite of 600 channels that are available to us. And we look to those channels to fulfill our basic needs and interests. I think what programmers have to do for these new media networks is create that balance. It's very easy to do it for appointment television. That's the video on demand, and that can be done very easily through search. I'm looking for this kind of thing, whether it's punk rock or a particular program, I know exactly what I want to watch. But for those people who are sitting and saying, I don't know what I want to watch, I know the kind of thing that I'm interested in, we have to put in place technologies so that they're not sorting through left, right, up and down 7,000 channels or putting in a particular search item, but we're using tools to be able to deliver that programming. The last part is that I recommend to everybody Crossing the Chasm, which is a book which becomes popular right about the time that we realize that we're out of our depth. We are, as my lawyer says to me, all reading our own mail. And we're all getting very excited about the things that we can do and assuming that consumers want that. We are looking at the real early adopters who love this stuff. But if you look on YouTube, the number of people the number of videos that get watched a truly significant number of times isn't that great. What we have to be focusing on is not the early adopters. Those are the guys that we have, and they're the ones who will play around with anything. But what is the early majority really going to be interested in? And for them, they're not asking for a 601st or 602nd channel. They're not asking even necessarily for a more finely tuned interest. They're asking for something that makes it easy to watch television.
I just would like to say that I absolutely agree with that, and without question, if you're looking at the way to connect any audience to content that they want contextually, it's based on what they happen to be viewing at the moment. They may have made a choice. Let's say for disc-based media, I've gone down to the store and I've purchased or downloaded a particular piece of media. Say it's an action adventure movie. With contextual advertising or messaging, I can see what's coming from that particular genre or that particular MPAA rating or other kinds of things. Those become convenience features. They're not really advertising. They're so much more of a service in a sense that consumers would react to much more positively. It has to be made easily. And certainly that's a key factor for next generation DVD, where you're talking about the ability to connect the audience with a particular piece of media that they own to other kinds of media that they may like that will be on message for what they're looking for.
So just to build on that, the fact of the matter is consumers have an insatiable appetite for content. They always want more, but the issue is that what I want is different than what Jack wants, which is different than what Martin wants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that the content providers, the service providers need to offer a lot of stuff. And then it really comes down to a navigation issue. And we've done a lot of research around this, and it's important as we think about this to really truly understand the mindset of the consumer when they're looking for entertainment content, as different from looking for information on the web. And based on the research that we've done, 2/3 of the time, consumers sit down in front of the television and they either have no idea what they want to watch or they only have some idea. 1/3 of the time, they know exactly what they want to watch, and search is perfect for that. But for the other 2/3 of the time, you've got to enable consumers to browse. That's why channel surfing is a great American sport. That's why consumers love to go to Borders to just browse. It's almost a form of entertainment in and of itself. So the trick then is, how do you enable consumers to browse literally hundreds, if not thousands, of choices? And some of the technologies that we're bringing to bear, pointing and zoomable visual directories, sort of get at that. But to build on one of the points just made a minute ago that I couldn't agree more, is that sort of very efficient access, very efficient presentation of choices is only part of the battle. From there, you've got to leverage recommendation engines or inferencing so that every step of the way, as the consumer walks through their choices and alternatives, at every step they're presented with a lot of other related choices, so that it's the only way that consumers will be able to sort through literally millions of choices. You can't, even if they had the greatest tools and could browse all this stuff visually, it doesn't matter. It's too much. So that you've got to continually narrow, leveraging the right kind of inferencing and recommendation engine to quickly narrow, so that consumers ultimately can find what they want to watch, quickly and easily. And that's, the technology that we at Hillcrest Labs are bringing to the market does that we believe, a very effective way. But that's fundamentally what's required in terms of a shift in paradigm as it relates to navigating entertainment content.
See, one of the things that I think, too, that a lot of our thinking is premised on is a very false one, which is, oh God, what if I miss it? That consumers are sitting around saying, oh God, what if I miss it? And there's some program, there are millions of different choices, and what happens if there's one of those programs that they would really like that they don't get? And I don't think that's really an issue at all. I think it's much more driven by the point that you're making about something which is contextual, and that context is constantly shifting. And if there's something that I'm watching that engages me and is entertaining me, and I've missed that great thing, it's always available. I think the part that we have to be really focused on is probably, quite frankly, delivering a lot less and thinking a lot more about the context that somebody's just been in, and trying to then deliver based on that.
Well, I mean, we're talking about pretty elaborate things. And when it comes to sitting in front of a PC, I guess my brain is okay searching and spending half an hour finding what I want, because sometimes it takes that much, because you press a button, you get 50 different choices, and if you're curious, you want to explore those choices. My real question is, does the consumer want to do the same thing in front of the TV? And the other question I have is, where is that choice being made? Do you subscribe to a service that will study and cater and come back and get your inputs and come back with a program you want to see, a diversified program that's targeted to what you want to see? Do you sit down on your PC and make those choices and somehow have the ability to seamlessly transfer that? And you got to look at DRM, you got to look at formats, because sold as content may come with different formats. You got to look at quality of service or quality of picture you got to get out of that into a big TV screen, and it's not that trivial to do. So, all these things, I'm not sure, and it may be different for different people. Some people may tolerate having a keyboard in front of their TV and typing things. Some people won't.
Yeah.
The other thing.
I wanted to insert something else into this discussion, which is the subject of money, in the context that if you look at what pays for television viewing in the United States, or in fact video viewing, defining it broadly, you've got pay-per-view on cable and satellite. That's not a big market, probably around $2 billion a year, I think is about right. You've got subscription, which is HBO and Showtime, I believe around, say, $5 billion a year. You've got the home video market, which I don't track, but I think it's on the order of around $15 billion a year. But the dominant one being advertising. So television advertising right now is about a $75 billion a year market. Just a couple of extra factoids. Broadband video advertising right now, the consensus guess I've been hearing is around, this year it'll be around $400 million. And VOD advertising, which is having some growing issues, is around $50 million a year. So let me throw this out to Martin initially, since his company is involved in this VOD advertising space. And I mean, let's talk about this whole issue of how you get consumers to either pay their own money or advertisers to pay to expose things to them. But perhaps let's use VOD as a case study. Why is VOD not producing more ad dollars than it is now?
Well, I think it should, and I think there's no reason it could not. And I think to Andy's point earlier, I think when the initial VOD was launched, the premise was that cable tried to position it more as a value add, without the real business model. And I think we're still a little bit in the aftermath of that. So I think generically, I agree, and I think the numbers reflect it as well, is that television, whether it's on the web or on TV, will be at least for the foreseeable future predominantly an ad-supported model. So I think anytime you try to deliver a video experience, you have to think how ads will play into that. And as a fact, it almost happens very naturally. The moment you typically see the trend where content finds its way first to all kinds of different devices in all kinds of different forms. And advertising tries to go with the content, but is often hindered by gatekeepers who are worried about who controls that money flow and what the end user experience will be. But they're naturally, if there's compelling content on different platforms and people watch it, advertiser wants to be there, and then I think it's a matter of how can you deliver the right contextual ads for that specific medium. So to maybe zoom in a little bit on VOD, which is not radically different from linear TV. It's the same medium, it's the same type of programming. There's some somewhat different characteristics, but currently, if you're an advertiser, you need to bake in your ads a couple of weeks in advance as part of the VOD content. You cannot refresh them, and you won't get any reporting back. So that's sort of the state of the industry right now. And I think it was about a couple of months ago we announced a deal with Comcast to now make all the ads in VOD be able to be inserted in a live fashion, according to time of day, playlists, et cetera, which is a huge step forward, and we're now in the process of rolling out. And I think in terms of of other platforms, I think we're in the phase right now where we're trying to figure out what the relevant type of ads are that will be successful in that platform. And I think folks who have been here for a couple of days, I think the comment has been made a lot of times that just slapping on the 30-second spots in different devices and different media forms is not a good model. And I think what we'll see much more is targeted, but also contextual. I think we will see a lot of product placement, and I think to add to the comments in terms of guidance, I think what we'll see a lot more in video is not only, I think the central guide where you go back and here's your start point for navigation is important. But if you look how people navigate through the web, you also go from link to link. And I think that's going to happen a lot on video as well. You're watching something's interest, you want to drill deeper, and you're now on a journey where you control your own ride, hopping back and forth, and always can go back to the mothership, but you're out there navigating through different content. And I think that's also some technology we're very involved in. How can you sort of telescope out of linear content into ads, into other pieces of content, and define your own destiny.
I think, Martin, that point is fundamentally important. I think it's one of the things that's lost a lot in digital media, that ability to link and drill down and then to, as you say, allow people to get back to the mothership. I think one of the things that's also happened is that we've taken a huge leap forward, and to the question about why is advertising coming solely in terms of video on demand, here again, context matters. The environment matters. Where is your spot playing? Is it adjacent to a program that you're comfortable with? But so too does time matter. And it's one of the things that I think we really have to wrestle with. I mean, if you watch the Today Show, a lot of the advertisements that are on the show are geared to an older audience, and it starts to skew older as the program progresses. Part of that is the content of the Today Show, but part of it also has to do with the time that the Today Show is on. I think one of the steps that we can take along the way to make video on demand advertising relevant is to have a hybrid between a traditional linear channel and pure video on demand, so that we have time-specific programming that advertisers can put their ads adjacent on, so that it's on at 9 o'clock at night when they want to be advertising beer. It doesn't matter. I mean, a 22-year-old kid maybe always has beer on his mind, but he has it's a lot more relevant at 9 o'clock at night than it is at 9 o'clock in the morning, hopefully. So figuring out adjacencies relevant to time, I think matters, and I think those narrowcast linear channels can be an important part of the growth to getting more VOD advertising going.
So I sort of lived through so I launched video on demand at Comcast and really sold through, for good or for bad, the strategy of free on demand. And so for about a year, I met with a lot of the content providers and basically said, in the end, this will be ad supported. You guys will make money. And unfortunately, the politics and the reality of sort of the business is that the cable ad sales organizations basically said, no. Before we give this inventory to the content guys, we have their content. We pay them hundreds of millions of dollars. I want to leverage this and build my ad business. The local cable ad sales may be about, Bill, you might know, but around $5 billion out of the $75 billion. So they're viewing this as, oh my God, we can drive our business with this, and sort of locked it up and sort of prevented the natural market dynamics whereby if the content providers could make money from content that they air on video on demand, then they would be incentivized to give the best content they have, because that will garner even bigger audiences that they can make even more money from. And unfortunately for cable, that hasn't really happened. And there's some steps that are being taken. Nielsen's involved, the stuff that Martin's doing, dynamic ad insertion, are very, very important. So it appears that they're on a path now. But the shame is that this didn't happen 3 years ago. Because VOD would, if that were the case, VOD would be a lot more than 3.5 billion hours of annual viewing. It could have been, just really what put cable in a very, very strong position competitively. It was a platform that, frankly, I feel has been somewhat suboptimized. But, that all being said, a world of exploding content, audiences are being splintered like beyond recognition. And the ability to enable an advertiser, once they capture a consumer's attention, even if for 5 or 10 seconds, to allow them to drill in and present very relevant information to them is fundamental to the way advertising needs to evolve. And telescoping is a good example of that. But then the right technologies that create very rapid and fluid interaction are required, because again, a grid, there's a showcase of GM cars and on demand today, and you got to bang through a grid and hit page down, page down, page down through all the different models. It's all text-based, and that really just doesn't do it. So again, it comes down to, we believe, a fundamentally new paradigm for navigating content on the television and other consumer electronic devices that allows a very efficient access and presentation of information so that consumers can very quickly get to the root of the information they're actually interested in from a particular advertiser.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key. I think one of the reasons that the advertising in VOD is doing so poorly is fundamentally through a lack of creativity and imagination on part of the operators on so many levels. First of all, it's VOD systems, the interfaces are really appalling. It's really, really hard to find things and to go back to things that you're repeatedly interested in. So that's the first thing. So how do you monetize content when it's buried 4 levels in menus? It's very difficult to sell advertising based on that. The second thing is, there are less spots available because, it's VOD, but that's not to say there aren't opportunities. They're not people, we need technology to take advantage of the pause and the fast forward. These are great opportunities to do advertising. And, it's just this lack of imagination, I think, that's really, and creativity that's really holding back pay TV operators from monetizing VOD. The content has value, there's no question. The problem is getting to it and selling against it because people can't get to it.
And the shame is, to Colin's point, if you can leverage the on-demand technology to create immersive environments for advertisers. So you hit a trigger when you watch a 30-second pre-roll ad or whatever the case might be, and you go to an environment that the advertiser then creates and presents all kinds of information so that the consumer can, and make it easy for the consumers to find exactly what they want. That no longer is that a 30-second message opportunity. Rather, if it's done right, with again the right navigation and the right content and the right environment, the viewer may spend 15 minutes in that environment, and again, really the value of the advertising is maximized. And again, in a world of incredible fragmentation and clutter, you've got to capture that user, and when you get their attention, you've got to provide them with a great experience so they actually spend some time with you, because it's tough to catch them at the outset.
You bet. I mean, you've got context, right? As soon as you drill in, you have context on what that person is looking for. What a fantastic opportunity to put a targeted ad. But then again, they come to the interface tomorrow and the context is gone. The system completely forgets everything. And you have to go back to square one. This is ridiculous. It would be helpful to everybody in the value chain if the system remembered context. But it doesn't.
We've been sort of talking about television and broadband video as if they are separate buckets or separate delivery mechanisms for information and entertainment. But we're beginning to see the beginnings of delivery mechanisms where the internet delivered content is showing up on television sets. And I want to kind of explore the panel's thoughts about what that means both from a technology standpoint and also a business standpoint. You were seeing the beginnings of things, say like internet delivered DVDs and movies. We're seeing TiVo offering Product Watch and other content that comes in over a broadband connection, but goes on the TiVo and goes on the TV set. And what I'm wondering is this, as much as broadband video itself is exploding, will we really see a dynamic jump in the market when we begin to see increasing numbers of people that can watch content that came in over their broadband pipe, but it shows up on their television set?
So for Hollywood, the home video departments are looking at their industry, which is somewhere around 24 billion. 2010 will grow to like 39 billion. Looking at ways of utilizing the internet to enhance their storytelling capability on the movies that they sell. So, for example, one way to do that even today is through the ability to deliver additional content for a particular disc that may have been sold. Our company, Interactual, has a player, for example, that seamlessly connects DVDs on your PC to the internet and links contextually the content that's on disk with other content that could be delivered or downloaded online. Things like additional director's commentaries or specific coming attractions or trailer management by itself, essentially making the disc, instead of a closed media, something that becomes live, perhaps a live disc kind of approach where you are continually updating and driving not only the kinds of messaging and advertising that you might want to deliver, but also the additional content and the extra value that keeps the genre, the movie franchise, whatever it happens to be, alive for the viewer that's looking at it. And for that becomes a monetizable situation where based on this hyper-targeted audience, those eyeballs that are looking at that particular movie, whether it's a Lord of the Rings or other type of very interesting movie title and fan base, you've got a lot of people that are interested in perhaps buying additional movie tickets. Maybe they want to get a box set or perhaps some other peripherals that come along specifically for that. So it becomes a very monetizable situation from that circumstance.
That idea, I think I love the idea of taking something that's on a DVD and allowing people to use the linking to be able to go past that and bring in additional content. I think probably, you were talking before about the notion of interactive being, it's always sort of about to come and nobody knows exactly what and how that's going to look. I think one of the things that we might need to consider is striking interactive and replacing it with involve. I think the content, the user experience has to fundamentally involve the user, and that includes the kind of programming that we offer. The idea of doing talk shows, for instance, and game shows where it's not driven by one person and a few people responding, but rather a whole group of people, which is what's enabled by the internet, being able to interact with each other. I think is very much at the future and the forefront, and we have to look. We've come. We're at a very basic level in what we're doing, and I think we have to, both in terms of advertising and content, look at ways to involve people. It's not going to be a one-to-many anymore. It's going to be many interacting with each other.
So you asked a question about technology, so I would take those comments in context of the technology, because at Magnum we're working on this networked interfaces for entertainment content rather than PC-related type of thing. There is a huge challenge in the infrastructure for transmitting broadband content, and people may look at it and say, well, I'm getting X number of bits at home, and that's a sufficient pipe, and therefore I can see, I can pipe 5 movies and then select it. Some people can, different people in the home can select it. It's much more complicated than this because it depends on the whole network infrastructure and whether it's going to be able to deliver that bandwidth reliably to the home. So there are, a number of things that can help. One is, as you're talking earlier, if those are complementary content, or someone mentioned that the average time on the internet of a YouTube or something like that is 2 minutes, then you get a short burst, and it's easier for the network to manage short bursts of data. And that's my belief, that in the first stage, the internet is not a competitor to the broadcast, and I guess you mentioned that earlier. They should embrace it, because they should view it as we can display more content that we don't have available on the broadcast. And those things are a lot easier to manage. There are other technologies where now storage is becoming cheaper and cheaper, and people have DVR, so you can do things where you can buffer. Just like, I don't know if you've done downloads on your PC, but you can see it says, it starts downloading on your PC first, and then you can view it without interruption. So those kind of technologies are also developed, and you're talking about those kind of DVDs, so you can either have storage on the hard disk, say, included in those systems, or even with optical, you have capability to pre-download some of the content, so you have that local buffer that enables you to have continuous viewing, which is critical for a consumer. I think on a PC you can tolerate if it takes a little bit of time. I think on TV, beyond a second, the consumer would not tolerate, the wait time. So they just want things instantaneously.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that, the TV tuner and their television is not the only appliance that's becoming smarter. The set-top boxes for playback of next generation DVDs are becoming smarter as well, and you hit on one of the things there. With each of the formats, whether it's HD, DVD, or Blu-ray disc, have a persistent storage built in, so that you can retain certain kinds of downloaded material that's contextual to a disc that you have online, whether it's additional actor biographies or the new trailers that happen to come along for that particular movie studio, as well as this seamless connection to the internet. I think it's absolutely true that one of your comments was the internet should not be competing with television or that type of programming. In fact, they should really be complementary. And with the set-tops that are coming out now, of course, they have the built-in internet connectivity where the connection should be seamless and therefore complementary to the and contextual to the program that's being viewed.
So I worked for Web TV, and what we were trying to do there, of course, was to bring the web to TV. And I think it's pretty much universally recognized as a failure. Yeah, failure is good. You learn through failure. Well, the web is coming to TV. The big difference is that now video and TV has come to the web. And so the natural place for you to want to view that video is on the central television, the best display in the house, the display where everybody congregates. So there is absolutely no question whatsoever that web content is going to be showing up on your TV sets very, very soon. One thing that Bill mentioned was there's, I think, 44% of households in the US now have broadband access. By 2010, it's going to be 70%. That's broadband video households, not just broadband households. you will be able to connect the web to your TV by 2010 and watch a lot of the video content that's out there. Can I just ask the audience, how many people watched ABC, watched The Lost or Desperate Housewives online?
Desperate Housewives, right? Desperate Housewives.
Well, what was the experience like?
That was okay, but I'd rather be on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But I gotta shoot you one tinge.
so just one thought that is based on nothing, but the reason that internet content is 2 minutes long is because, excuse me while I take note, let me turn this off. Is that it's a 2-foot experience. People are leaning forward, looking at their TV. Well, to watch a 2-hour movie, leaning forward, looking at your TV, that's just beat, right? So as that internet content is able to get from the 2-foot environment on the PC to the 10-foot environment in the living room, what that enables then is much longer forms of content to be relevant that's delivered over the internet with Jack's technical caveats. But literally, if you say 2 billion hours that Bill mentioned earlier at 2 minutes a pop, that's 60 billion views. You multiply it not by 2 minutes but by 30 minutes. That's 120 billion hours of viewership. So then all of a sudden, broadband video starts to contend very favorably, if you will, with TV viewership at 460 billion. So it's really kind of this, making the leap from the 2-foot to the 10-foot, as more and more video content is able to do that, it's going to make broadband video more important over time because it's going to create the opportunity to create longer form stories, and it's going to happen.
I'm seeing audience demand for questions. Let me just pose a question to the panel, which we'll come to at the very end, so I'll give you time to think about this. What is the thing over the past year that has been the most pleasant surprise to you about this space? So I'll give you a few moments to think about that. This is unfair to the panel. I just threw this in. I didn't bring it up in the pre-meeting, so that's why we're going to give them some time to think about it. But let's go to the questions.
I think a comment was made about people coming together and the best display in the house to watch the TV together. What I've noticed over the last few years, anecdotally as well as in research, that with more computers, the family
Yes.
first as opposed to coming together. And I think with broadband video and VOD and HD, I think it's going to disperse more. And one factor which I'm noticing is that the PC monitors are becoming high definition. I mean,
Yes.
today for $200, $300, you can get a high def. So it's not a question of lean forward, lean backward, none of this. I mean, I can lean backward in my study room as well. So any thoughts in terms of the psychodynamics and the market?
I completely agree with you. I think that if you look in the pen, the Marriott messages, your Marriott awaits, and if you look at what marketers are doing, they're making that fundamental point that this is about you. This is about customization. And somebody was talking about that they had bought a DVD player for their car for the kids to watch, and it never gets used because each of the kids sits in the back seat watching their own video iPod. And the community is very real and a very necessary human function, but it's become more refined and more developed by people being able to engage in social interactivity. And I think there are going to be times, Sunday night or some other night, just like going to the movies, where people are going to gather around the television. But I think more and more, you're exactly right, monitors are getting better. The quality of watching a video on my computer is excellent. And the other thing is that somebody asked us, where are people getting the hours for people to be able to watch this media? What is it replacing? And a very learned colleague of mine said, well, it's not replacing anything. It's now something that they're doing in addition to something else. They're watching a video while they're working on a spreadsheet. And I think that kind of behavior is going to happen more and more. That PC is going to be the center of the next generation of television, without a doubt.
I'm not sure I'll accept that. What I will say, though, is that without question, what does the web really mean for video? What it means is you can watch anything, anywhere, anytime. That's what it really means. Whether you want to watch it on your TV, your PC, your handheld, from your hotel room, it's anytime, anywhere, anything.
See, I think it's much more, I think it's that, but that's kind of the easy part. It's much more that you can be part of a community, the community that you really care about. And that's much more important than anything, anywhere, anytime. I mean, that's kind of that's the thing that we all get so excited about, as if people are saying, God, I haven't been able to watch Good Morning America in the afternoon. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but it's all very marginal. That ability to take that program, to be part of a community, to get other people to refer stuff to you so that you're watching stuff based on a recommendation, I think is the key driver. And I think that is a one-to-many experience that happens through the PC.
Yeah.
Let's have the next question.
Yeah, right now the average American household on the internet uses about 1.7 hours a day. The average television household uses about 8 hours a day. So as broadband television comes online and the use of the internet goes from 1.7 to 8, what does that do to the economic model of Comcast? And then two, Comcast sold about $1.8 billion in ads off the 20% of ads they get off television. Well, they started insisting on a percentage of the ads on the internet as we go along. They start insisting on a revenue, an ad.
So I assume you're directing that at me.
Sorry.
Okay, no. Somebody else go first. What do you think about it? No. It's clear that Comcast is out there aggregating rights for broadband video very aggressively, and it's clear that they're in the process of building vertical broadband portals that create immersive experiences organized around certain interests and communities. My bet is that, at the end of the day, that would be delivered to their customers as part of their service. So that they may charge like an HOV lane or a toll road, so that there's sort of guaranteed delivery or quality of service or whatever the case might be. But it's not, it might be $5 or $10 or something like that. So, my sense is that in order for them to attract really good quality content, and unless they're going to pay a ton of money for it, which they're not, they're going to need to allow those content providers to monetize their asset via advertising. So I wouldn't be surprised if a comparable model evolves where it's 75% of the inventory is available to the content provider, 25% is siphoned off by Comcast as sort of, the cost of that distribution platform. But I do think that if they're smart about it, there's a lot that can be done to dramatically enhance the capability and effectiveness of advertising by leveraging some of the technologies that are available on the internet today to enable advertisers to create immersive experiences and really make those ad units work much, much harder than they do in a linear environment or even on demand when it's a 30-second ad. So I do think, I think the right thing to do is to leverage the business model that's been in place for 50 years and actually works pretty well and adapt it to that channel.
Yeah, it's been interesting because a repeated theme here at the show has been the potential of video going to the TV from the web and how that can drive that market up, and that is getting closer and closer, and people are excited about it. But TV is obviously moving into the HD era, and if web video is going to compete as a TV medium, then we've got a huge bandwidth issue in the access space on best effort networks. And you've got the very people who would best benefit from having a higher quality stream into the home fighting against any business propositions under the label of net neutrality against having those kinds of business propositions emerge. So there seems to be a disconnect between this expectation of what can be done on TV versus the willingness to create a big enough bandwidth path that guarantees that TV experience is really worthwhile. And I just wonder if you guys, if you would like to comment on that. I'm curious how.
So I had to do the last one, so I'm not going to do that one, Fred.
Well, the telcos, interestingly, are very focused on this exact issue because, to some extent, they're starting to build out their ability to deliver video, and they're doing it in two contexts. One is on DSL connections, and another one is on fiber connections. On fiber, no problem. You're getting 100 megabits. You look at Shore West in Sacramento, they have a fiber network. They're delivering HD at 19.2 megabits. It looks fabulous, better than EchoStar. They also have an ADSL connection where they can't do HD because it's only 9.6. So you're absolutely right. There is a huge problem with the DSL and the broadband and the cable modem approach for delivering HD content, particularly streamed, because there just simply isn't the bandwidth. Now, where does the motivation come from to build bigger, fatter pipes and to keep pushing the technology in that direction? Boy, it's a tough question. One of the things I will say, though, that Shore West is finding, Shore West is a great example because they've got both DSL and fiber networks, is they're finding that there is a 40% better ARPU for those people on the cable connection, on the fiber connections than on the DSL. What is that telling you? The people on the fiber networks are buying more other stuff, more services, more movies. They're using that connection much more than the DSL users. So perhaps that right there is the motivation.
I think the other.
We got time for one more question. I wanted to get at least one on this side of the room.
I do want to mention this that we have not addressed at all on this panel, and I'll be short. But I did talk about, and I concur with what Colin is saying in terms of the telecom network infrastructure. But we haven't addressed on this panel, and we're forgetting, which to me is the big surprise, is the fact that governments are now taking actions to cut off the analog, the good old TV transmission analog, and converted that into digital pipes. And now you're getting another avenue to the consumer with a very fat, high bandwidth digital pipe, where now that it's digital, it can pipe anything you want. And you're going to be able to access that on your TV. But if you're in a train somewhere and you have a capability which you can't do on satellite or cable, you cannot receive that kind of broadband pipe. You're going to now be able to do this. And I don't think we've yet comprehended what can happen using that new digital pipe over the air.
Yeah, maybe
All
just
right,
to.
cool. We've got time for. I want to get to this gentleman's question. We got about 5 minutes left, so.
This is very short. The electronic program guide is closely linked to the remote control. My question is, do you think today's remote controls are perfectly satisfactory for you?
Andy?
So do you want a job? No, I'll give you your money later on. So it's
That's great, right?
Yeah. So I don't want to make this an ad. Our technology actually uses a device, a pointer-based device. When you move it, the cursor on screen moves, and it has 2 buttons and a scroll wheel. So you zoom in or select, you zoom out, or you go back. And then the software is very visual. It's a zoomable environment. So you see 100,000 feet, you zoom in, you pan, you zoom in further, you get more information. So the direct answer is that the 50 button, the up, down, left, right 50 button remote control is it's a paradigm that has outlived its useful life, and a new paradigm is required, and we have an answer or a solution that we think can actually create a lot of value.
Did you pay him $10 to ask that question?
I think you must have. When you sneaked out to go to the bathroom, you were giving him 20 bucks.
Okay. Let's get to pleasant surprises over the past 12 months, and I'll kick it off since I posed the question. I'll say my answer in one sentence is how fast the cable and broadcast networks are moving into broadband. I think that it's a float all boats proposition that will help not only them, it will help advertisers. I think it will help the incumbent broadband video providers too, by raising the profile of that as a delivery mechanism. And I think ultimately it will help television because it will help move the operators to move faster.
Me?
We're going to go down this way, so. Well, you
Start there or go here?
either way, Trevor, Andy?
I think my biggest surprise is that people will watch. I've been impressed since launching our service. Once somebody comes in and becomes a repeat customer, they come in more than 2 times, they're watching an average of 6 hours a month. And that number and watching all across the board, people are going to the computer and using the internet as a way to deliver television, especially television that's not available on cable and satellite, and that's exciting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And for us, we're able to see how many users, for example, are accessing discs on PCs. As a pleasant surprise for us is just how that number has increased over the past 12 months, and certainly over the past few years has exponentially grown. The number of consumers that are using the Two-Foot experience as their primary viewing platform, whether on the go or at home. And so that's been a very wonderful forecaster for us as we look at contextual advertising and connecting the internet with on-disc media.
So the pleasant surprise for me is that if you go back for 1 year from today, you would not find any major broadcaster with any major content on the web at all. Today, everybody's there.
So my pleasant surprise was that I really started enjoying watching TV for the first time this year. And the reason is that I never could cope with the poor quality of visual quality of watching TV. I loved movies, I loved video. Just sitting in front of a TV with, somewhat grainy image. And with HD finally coming, being made available, especially by the satellite providers on some scale, have really, made my TV watching experience more pleasant and has driven up the Tandberg stock price by selling more MPEG-4 encoders.
I already used my slot, so again, I'm pleasantly surprised at the government coming together and freeing that analog bandwidth, terrestrial analog bandwidth, and I'm really excited of all the content and services that will be able to be piped on desktop as well as mobile platforms using that pipe.
So my pleasant surprises maps closely to Bill and Colin's, but for a very selfish reason. We built a navigation technology designed to fix the problem with VOD, at 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 choices. It easily scales to the millions. So we love what we're seeing in terms of this broadband gold rush, where very viable content entertainment options will number in the millions before too long, and you need a new way to sort through that very quickly and efficiently, and that's the technology that we've developed. So.
All right, well, I'd like to thank our excellent panel. I enjoyed the discussion. Thank you for